right, so we've got Richie and Josh with Georgia Sportfishing, and they had some technical issues today with their motor that we can get into, but unfortunately they're stranded on the hill. And the good news is that now we can talk with them about some sheepshead fishing. We'll talk about the gear, the moon phases, the tides, all that good stuff, and you'll definitely leave this knowing a lot more about sheepshead fishing, without a doubt. And you might leave knowing a little bit more about Suzuki motors, too. So what happened with that?
You might. Yeah. I don't want to get I don't want to get into dogging them because we got two. But
yeah, we do.
At this point, we've cleaned. I mean, my mileage has dropped. We've cleaned the VST. Mileage is still dropping. Sometimes it'll skip. Sometimes it won't. So I just think it's time for it to go see who it needs to see as in a mechanic. And this time of year, you know what that's going to entail is waiting.
Yep.
Yeah, and being under warranty. Yeah. We'll let them do it.
Yeah, we do have. When I bought that boat, that's one of the reasons I bought it. The motor had like 2.5 years of warranty left on it, 3 years. So we got that.
Yep.
But with Suzuki, a lot of things that aren't with Yamaha is like things are under user maintenance. Injectors, since when is that user maintenance?
Yeah,
but it is. But
it's a pretty savvy user if you can change your own injectors.
Yeah, that's right.
That's all part of Suzuki's maintenance, user maintenance.
And it's a really simple motor, but not everybody's got whatever you need to do that. Jason down the road here says he can clean the injectors, but at this point, I think we better take it to somebody and get it documented and get it done.
Yeah,
I'm tired of messing with it. So the guys that had it before me, we refurbished the entire boat.
Oh man, and that's a whole nother video.
Yeah, we ain't even getting into that because that's 4 months of hell. But the fuel filter, I wish I had a picture I could sling up here and show you. The fuel filter looks so bad. And I'm like, tell me you weren't running that. They were.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah. And that doesn't even look like gas.
No, it doesn't.
It didn't look like a filter either.
There was soot in the bottom. It was a
rake.
It was a spin-on rake core, And in the bottom of the bowl, you could see stuff. I was like, are you kidding me? They've run this. And the filter was about rusted through. I'm like, how old?
Don't buy your gas off of Craigslist.
Man, dude, that filter had to be, for real, like 3 to 5 years old. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, knowing that they ran that, there's no telling what's been into the motor. Luckily, the compression and all that's good. It's definitely fuel related. So this is the second round with the VST tank cleaning that out. The little filter in the bottom, and just cleaning it in general.
That's not easy.
No, it's not.
You got to know how to do it.
Yeah, you do.
Well, the bad thing that the average, person out there buying a motor, they're like, well, it's under warranty, so worst case scenario is I can't fish for a little while it's getting fixed. But when your income depends on it, it's like, well, I'm glad that I don't have to pay for the repairs, but they're not going to cover your downtime.
No.
You miss 10 trips at $500-600 a pop, $700 a pop. That's a different Christmas. That's a different level of staying up at night wondering how the mortgage gets paid.
You daggum right it is. It's just come to luckily, we can work on a lot of this stuff, but when it gets down to, I'm not going to start pulling injectors out and taking them apart. I don't, you know what I mean? No. I don't know enough about that.
Yeah. We're not a master mechanic,
Right. And I like to be able to take it to somebody and say, do what it needs.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is. I want you to look at it and I want you to fix it. And if you see something that's going to cause me to be down in 2 weeks, go ahead and fix that too.
Yeah.
And if you mess it up, it's your fault, not ours.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And then you hope that they do it right. So partially with this, anyways, with this situation, we'll move past it, but the people before me didn't do the maintenance like they should.
Gotcha.
Is what's happened here. So we're just getting the blow from that is what we're dealing with. And it's about everywhere, but I think, we know the tank's good. We know the filter's good now. We know the fuel line's good. Everything's good. All the way back to the last chance filter's good. The VST's clean. The filter above the VST, the injector is clean. It only leaves the injectors. It's at the end of the line now of everything we've done.
The very last, Yep.
So that would.
Well, that's this is one of the leftover things from that pandemic. That it's just hard to buy new motors, and sometimes you got to buy a used one, and you don't always know how it was treated.
No, right. No.
But the good news is now we can talk about Sheepshead.
Yeah, we can.
And so y'all have been keeping an eye on these things, not just by fishing for them, but you've been doing some underwater filming. So starting in January, right?
Yeah.
I think is what we discussed. What have y'all been seeing?
Well, we've actually done it for a few years. I just now starting to make it publicized, of course, because it really doesn't matter. So I just had to get through that part first. Should I really show people this? But I mean, it's just sheepshead on a reef, so it doesn't matter. But what we're seeing is, like in January, there's fish there. There's resident fish there year round, but they're smaller fish usually.
Yeah.
You know, your 10
I mean,
inch.
you can catch them in July and August.
Yeah,
and stuff. There's going to be some there.
Yeah,
at all
there
times.
is. And so the first few drops, I mean, because we've had a lot of good weather between the fronts to have come nasty fronts, but a couple of days after that, most of these fronts has been 2-3 days of good weather where it's under 3 feet.
I mean, in some of our videos, I mean, it looks like a lake.
Yeah. And I made mention of that too. It's like, well, we're really lucky today. We're getting really lucky a lot on that part. But on the filming, we've seen where there was, you know, like just for example, you can't really count them because you don't know which ones are the same ones when you redrop in a different area of that reef. But at first, there's several fish there. This is in January early, right before the moon. So we drop down, you see some sheepshead there. Nothing. It's hard to tell size down there, but I'm guessing nothing over 3 or 4 pounds, right? So then let's just fast forward into this one, into February where we're at now. Around the last moon, we saw many more sheepshead like it should be, but they're still, when they're really there, which I think it's going to be this next moon in March, the full moon coming up next. What is that? 2 weeks away, approximately.
Yeah.
So I think what it should look like is the reef is covered in sheepshead. That's what happens in the end. But the fish are already starting. The males are already starting to secrete in the boat when you catch them. So they're starting their spawn. And
and you'll know when that happens fishing wise prior to us dropping cameras and stuff is when we knew it was right is when you're a good sheepshead fisherman and you drop down and it's almost every single time you hook up.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, all right, well, that was a sea bass bite or that was a grunt or whatever it was. It's just one after another.
Yeah.
That's when you know. And then putting that camera down there on the structure, it confirms it. And, I mean, you literally just see the whole screen's blown up with sheepshead.
Yeah.
So that's a really cool thing to put, you know, from just being able to see what's on your line to what's actually down there.
So would you say that, say right now, if you went out there and you were just catching, say 10-1 sea bass, it's not that something's wrong. It's that you're just in a spot where there's not that many sheepshead, or
you're not there on time.
Right.
One of the two.
Right.
Or it's not time for because when they come in there, I'm telling you, when the moon gets right in March is where it's going to be. It is every year. We rush it every year. Oh, they're going to be here in February this year. No, they're not. There are going to be a few, but you're going to catch mostly bass, right? And triggerfish,
right?
Which triggerfish is fine, but 10-inch bass ain't. So, yeah, it's coming up where the whole reef is literally covered in them. We haven't seen that on camera yet. Until I see that, I know it's not right
for this year.
For this year, because we see it every year. A few more. All of a sudden, you got a couple dozen, a few dozen.
Yeah,
you're like, okay, it's getting better. And you're starting to see some fish. And like I said, you can't tell size, but compared to other fish, you see some that are way bigger. So you just assume those are pretty good sized fish when it takes him a few seconds to pass the camera. He's pretty good one.
Right.
And when you see those grunt that are, you know, every single grunt down there is this long.
Yeah. You know about what size the grunts are.
You see them, you know, side by side.
Yeah.
You know,
he's 5 times bigger. You know,
you can gauge them.
That's an 8-pound fish.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So y'all have probably heard this before, guys talking about like dropping a chum bag off the reef to try to pull the bass and stuff off to leave just the sheepshead.
Yep.
Are we giving that a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
To catch what, sheepshead?
To get the bass away from the reef.
Pull the bass over to the chum bag to hopefully leave the sheepshead behind.
I'm giving it a thumbs down because it's just going to make everything insanely crazy wanting to bite down there. I'm giving that's thumbs down.
I'm with you. I wasn't gonna pour cold water on it if y'all were believers, but I'm like, man,
because I mean,
I'm not feeling it.
It doesn't make much sense. You put it on the front of the boat, the current's gonna, you know, drag it this way, right where your baits are.
Or you go drag it over here, and
no matter what, you know, every fish down there, including snapper, eat those fiddler crabs that you're going to use for sheepshead.
Yep. Yeah, they do.
So
You're going to fire everything
Yeah,
up.
everything will get fired up. And, I mean, that's what chum does.
Everything but sheepshead.
Yeah.
You're going to get everything going but the sheepshead. I think that's what's going to happen. We got footage of tying the camera that we have is activated it's water activated. So when we tie them off to we got a chum cage that we can send to the bottom. We've done all the stuff. We've filmed it. So that's the only way you're going to know what's happening. Guessing ain't going to do it. Is filming it in 1080. That's the only way to know. What's really going on when you do whatever technique it is you think. And the chum bag at a half a depth in the column somewhere, half the depth is very, very effective for something, especially snapper. I can get them up to the top in 35 feet of water doing that and catch them off the top. But that's not what we're after this time of year, obviously. So I would say no on chumming the sea bass off, because when the sheepshead are there and it's the right moon, everything's right, which is around that moon in March. You're not going to have to worry too much about them anyway. You're just going to catch a few. And there's so many sheepshead there, they're pretty aggressive, and they're not going to let them get to it anyhow. So So if you're catching a bunch of bass in March, you need to move because you're in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And that's more or less what I was alluding to. If you're just getting 10-to-1 bass, then maybe you're in a bass hole.
Yeah. Maybe you are. Yeah. And a lot of people just go up to the structure, and when they see the marked structure, they drop the trolling motor right there or anchor right there. Don't do that. I mean, the fish are on the back down current side, facing into that current, and they do swim around it. They do. But if you're where the conglomerate is, which is going to be on the opposite,
on the lee side.
Yep, that's right. On the lee side, that's where they're going to be, and the majority of them, and we've proven that because we've seen it on camera.
Yeah.
Do you ever see much on that the up current side at all? Like any species whatsoever? Do you ever notice that anything likes that side?
It's for the most part what we see is they just kind of maneuver around. They're
just swimming around.
They're swimming around, but I mean, as far as the feeding fish, they're always on that down
back
end.
What we call the back end.
They're waiting for stuff to flush.
But you will see, and you will catch fish doing that, but you won't. It's hard to get on a really good bite up current of the fish.
The abundance is going to be.
Yeah.
And we can't sell a sheepshead trip where you go out there and catch two.
No.
So
that's right.
You got to go get on those numbers.
Yeah. Well, if you get up current, you might catch just two.
Yeah.
That's so. And we see that, and you've seen it. I mean, when people just come up and where as soon as they mark something, that's where they fish. It's going to take me a minute because I need to look around. I need to figure out exactly what I want to do there as far as the lee side, and then I'll wear that out too. I'll bump it up 5 or 10 feet at a time up the side of it. You see, and then I'll work across that, then back down and just work a whole circle around the lee side of that reef. And then or wreck whatever it is, live ball, whatever it may be, rocks, concrete, whatever it is. And then we'll finally work up to the front of it, as the tide changes and everything spins around. So,
Yep. I take a similar approach with cobia.
Yeah.
I'll pull up and I'll jig the whole thing. Sometimes I'll say, hey, there's not a ton of them here. Let's catch some sea bass and see if, maybe they're in the periphery and they'll see all that action and come in. But I'll bounce around that whole thing trying to dig out a cobia.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, definitely.
What is there a certain type of structure you prefer, like a wreck versus concrete versus live bottom?
Small piece.
Yeah, and probably not so much live bottom. There's fish on it, but it's not going to be many.
Right?
They really love a structure, and most of the time, they're not on the structure. That's what's weird. They're beside it.
Yeah.
You do. I mean, there is some on it, but as we film, you learn more. And you see them. They're in pairs and triples. A lot of times, as you've seen in my video footage, they're off to the side of the wreck in the sand.
Yeah.
So you got to be prepared for that. It's okay if you spin off a little bit, but don't go too far.
And a lot of what we learned by dropping that camera down is what we thought we were fishing isn't actually what we thought it was.
No.
So we might have thought it was some concrete or it was some rebar, and then we find out that it's opposite, or it's live bottom with a big potato coral or something like that. Okay. And that allowed us to really hone in the structure that we fish. We like a lot of, think about it. What does sheepshead eat? They eat crustaceans. So any type of crab or oyster or any type of shell crustacean that's going to be growing, and that grows to concrete and metal. A lot of
it does. Yeah.
So
and I mean that makes a ton of sense because if you look at, I mean, just so we're not getting uber specific, like maybe out at F Reef where there's just giant debris field.
Yes.
But when you can say this right here is a pile of rebar, or this right here is one giant chunk of concrete, and there's those spots within the spots, and you know what they are.
Spots within the spots.
That's valuable.
It is
super valuable
because
everything looks good for like what a half square mile or something like that. It's all going to show up on your machine. So, I mean, what are you just going to stop anywhere inside that box?
Yeah,
and that's going there, and it's all covered in sheepshead.
Yeah, I wish it worked that way.
It'd be nice. We wouldn't have to have this conversation.
Yeah, no kidding. There's one spot we've got that's, and I thought the whole time that it was a big coral head, or I didn't know what it was. Anyway, it turned out to be a bunch of rebar just twirled up.
Looks like spaghetti.
That. Yeah, it looks like spaghetti, and it's
really... I've seen that in one of your videos, and we're talking about his Bottom Fishing 24/7 is the channel that we're talking about. If you hear us referencing his videos, you can go there and see this for yourself.
Yeah, underwater video at Bottom Fishing 24/7 on YouTube. But it's that had to be like 2-inch, 3-inch rebar, like bridge rebar or something.
Yeah,
it's huge, and it's. And as it goes, the camera went over it this one time, and you see some sheepshead all swimming around it and swimming beside it and over the top of it. I'm like, well, there's nothing in it. All of a sudden, they start coming out like termites.
Yeah,
out of that rebar.
Huh. Yeah, they live down there.
Yeah, they're living
inside of it.
Yeah.
So my assumption is maybe those are resident fish. I don't know, because the ones that come out of it, you can tell they're smaller than the ones surrounding it. Mm-hmm. So you never know. But that was interesting to see, because usually they don't go inside a structure. Usually beside it. And to see that was interesting. Yeah. But I've never seen a spot that's just a ball of rebar before.
Yeah.
So
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. When I saw it, I was like, what is that? A coil of wire? Or,
it looks like wire. Yeah, it does. And I'm gonna tell you something. And on that spot, a lot of times we drop down and you just reel up and there'd be nothing. Mm-hmm. Your whole rig's gone. Now we know why. We know why.
And on the machine, when you're marking that on the bottom, using high chirp, you'll look at that and it's all you see is that relief. And that's another reason that camera works so well is you're just seeing the relief come up, 6 foot off the bottom, 8 foot off the bottom. And you're not seeing any fish. And as we know with sheepshead, you don't mark the fish as much like you do like snapper and bass and other fish like that. And the reason we found it when we dropped that camera, they're down inside that rebar. They're inside of it. So
at that spot,
you're not marking this fish because it's marking that metal before it marks them. So,
and we found that with also just to be clear on that, we've done that as well on concrete too, and not be marking hardly anything. They're just so low down in it that you need a literal camera to see what they're doing.
Sure,
because they don't really
come trying to mark a grouper that's under a ledge. You're not.
You can't. You can't do that. Right. You can't do that, obviously. So,
and that's a whole nother thing that people, when they go to read their bottom machines, they don't understand that you're not every species of fish is not going to mark on that sonar.
It's not. And I'm sure we've marked sheepshead that we thought was snapper maybe, but I can tell you that snapper mark. Yeah, you can mark a snapper, but sheepshead sometimes you don't really mark much. But if it's
I've seen a guy that was go ahead. Yeah, I watched somebody. I wish I could remember who it was, but he was going out looking for those big mule snapper, and he would cruise like this just desolate bottom. He'd go, there's one right there, and he would drop and sniper that one fish
because he marked the fish moving, right?
Right, yeah. He would he would mark the fish out in the middle of like what looked like just sand.
Yes.
And he'd go, there's a big mule right there, and he'd pick that one fish off like a sniper.
Yeah, snapper. I think snapper and cobia, to me with chirp is. I mean, I can pretty much tell that's what it is.
Yeah, you can identify them.
Yeah, and I can tell just about probably what size it's going to be within a couple pounds. Of course, I can tell it's a big one or a small one. Yeah.
And my favorite tarpon.
Yes.
Golly, when you mark a tarpon, that's a tarpon. You see the hole where his eye is. You see the shape of his head. You see the tail.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's a tarpon. And if it's not a tarpon, it's definitely a tarpon.
Yeah, for sure. No question on that.
Yep. But that chirp is Man, that's a game changer too.
Absolutely. Between that and trolling motors, there ain't gonna be a fish left in 10 years. I mean,
it really has become unfair between the things like this, the fast or the convenient access to information like this, the trolling motors, being able to hover over these spots and lock your spot in.
Yeah.
Chirp, underwater
cameras. Underwater cameras are a really serious disadvantage because, there's spots that I'd never hit before because I never really marked anything that I'm glad that I went back and looked at. And I was like, holy moly, because there'd be sheepshead all over it,
Yeah, and that's a conversation we need to have another day about fishing spots and correlating what looks like it might be good with something that's actually verified as, this is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's something else funny about that. Around that rebar pile, you can see it in a couple of those videos that you'll see something else off to the side. There's another chunk of something over there that I still hadn't really ID'd perfectly yet. But honestly, man, it looks like part of an old boat, kind of the stern of an old boat, maybe. I can't really tell, but there's a Goliath in that spot.
Yeah,
that's over 300 pounds. That when we sometimes we catch some pretty big bass off of that rebar roll or pile, and that Goliath, we've seen him literally come like on the surface. We haven't got him on camera yet, but we need to. We're trying to.
Yeah, we're trying.
But we have seen that thing come up, man.
Yeah,
I had one of the best experiences of poetic justice ever with the Goliath grouper at a spot that you and I are both super familiar with. There may or may not have been a ladies' state record sheepshead caught there.
I got you. I got you.
But I was catching spadefish with a guy and his son, and had the spadefish dive down there, and something got a hold of it. Something heavy, something slow. I said, man, that's a big Goliath down there that just ate your spadefish. And he's like, oh, have you seen him before? And I said, no. I said, I've never seen him. I said, but that's what that is. And he's like, so you don't know for sure? I was like, all right, dude, you got me. I don't know for sure. I haven't laid eyes on it. You got me. And about 2 minutes later, he's reeling in a spadefish, and he gets it right up behind the motor, and that sucker comes up and eats it right behind the motor off the surface. And I was like, that's a Goliath grouper for sure. I just saw it, and now you know that. And then not a few minutes later, his son brings one up on the side of the boat, and two of them came up after that one. I mean, they were just going bananas.
I think we might be talking about the same place.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. But
because, I mean, and they may be everywhere. I don't know, but I know there they are. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I mean, I know there's
two of them there for sure, and they were twice the size of me.
Yeah, were they two different sized ones? Because we're seeing two different sized ones. You remember?
I don't remember because this has probably been. I was in my 24 Pathfinder, so that would have been like 2015 or 16.
Yeah. We're seeing a really, really, really big one and then a medium sized one. 250's medium. 200 maybe. But
it may be. If it's in the same spot, it may be the same too.
Here's a problem that
I flipped them on some bigger gear and couldn't move them.
Yeah, well, I want to catch one of them, and obviously we can't use sea bass for bait legally. Can't do that. So, trying to figure out how we want to target them, because we're going to do it. We got the setups ready. We might even hand line it. I mean, whatever we need to do. But what I need is I can't wait till I catch some little bullet bonita or either
some jacks,
those
little bar jacks,
or even a good sized ladyfish works.
Yeah.
That works wonder.
Would a Spanish be out of the question?
No, Spanish would work.
Yeah.
It really doesn't have to be
that sucker. Yeah,
it could be dead. And Stewart, I can tell you that under the Roosevelt Bridge and the 10-cent bridge, all that stuff works. You can use ladyfish. They got big croaker there too. You can use a big croaker. I mean, anything. A jack. I mean,
bluefish.
A bluefish. Any of that works. Just something big.
Yeah, they don't care. They're just going to inhale it.
Yeah. You drop a pogie down there, you'll probably never get a bite from him. Yeah. So no, and plus the snapper's going to eat it before you.
Right.
Get one on anyway. He might eat that though.
Wait, are y'all seeing snapper offshore?
Yeah, we are. We're seeing them in 25 feet of water, actually, 30 feet.
Yeah. And I think they're about to start crawling up on the beach and eating us.
I'm telling you, man.
It's getting close.
Yeah, I went down to MREP and did their whole training program down in St. Pete, and I mean they have got a nice little speech worked out to try to make you think that what they're doing is smart, and it's just not.
What are they saying smart?
So it does have some merit. They're saying, hey, look, yeah, there are more snapper than there's ever been in your lifetime.
Yes.
But the key phrase there is your lifetime. Like, what about 1920? Are there more snapper than there were in 1920?
Yeah.
But my argument to that is everything has to be in balance. Mm-hmm. We can't have the same number of snapper that we had in 1920, but have 95% less grouper than we had in 1920.
Yeah.
That's not how an ecosystem, system being the key word here, works. It's a system.
Yeah.
If the snapper are overrunning all the resources, those other species are going to die off.
Yeah, which we've seen with the sea bass.
Absolutely.
We used to catch, 5, 6, 7 pound sea bass, and
no joke.
We're not seeing those size anymore because of the snapper population. That especially on those closer in reefs. I mean, good Lord, we're seeing more snapper there than they just didn't used to be there. I mean, you used to fish those pretty heavy back in the day, and
I'm gonna tell you how big of a deal it is on the shallower reefs, and it's no secret which ones that those are, because they're in Georgia and they're the closest ones. But we watched those fish go from just a couple of a pound or two chicken snapper up to now we got it on these reefs 8 or 9 pounders
pretty regularly too.
Yeah, and so those fish have grown up there. So now we're catching 8-9 pound adult fish, because we've been fishing it for 6 or 8 years, seeing these fish come in here, and we're also catching again chicken snapper. They're doing their thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They're multiplying. They're reproducing. The biology is working there. So, in a couple of these spots, I would dare to say that probably nobody fishes, but it's we let everything go at those spots that I think we might have an exclusive there, possibly. But so we let everything go, and we've watched it grow because of that. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty interesting to watch, So.
Yeah, I almost have to be careful what I say, because not that anybody's paying that close of attention to me, but you start saying, well, grouper are in trouble and sea bass are in trouble, and then the government hears shut it down.
Yeah,
take it away from them. Mm-hmm. It's like that's not working. It's almost like the war on drugs.
Yeah,
it doesn't work. That's not how. You have to have some selective harvest, and in my opinion, we've got things way out of balance.
Well, selective 2 days a year is not enough. 2 days ain't going.
That creates that shotgun.
It's gonna keep devastating the smaller fish ecosystem, like the sea bass and stuff like that. We're never going to catch big sea bass again, probably in our lifetime, if they keep this up. So
yeah. I know it's like if we've got so many snapper that they eat up all the bait fish, well, then now the snapper don't have anything to eat either. So then they collapse. And then whatever's right below them, it blows up. Their population, whatever the snappers were preying on, that blows up.
Yeah,
and then
that's right.
It eats everything, and then that collapses, and it's just a chain reaction. And it's like, man, we can't tamper with it like that.
No,
We've got to have some kind of, we got to be even-handed.
I agree, man. I don't know how to battle it. And you remember when we used to go to R5, and we were some of the first guys to speed jig. Remember way back like 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like nobody else was really doing that. We're experimenting with colors and all that stuff. Well, we were to pull it there and catch. You limit out on amberjack in 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Go and try to catch one now, because when the commercial guys when they cut out the snapper, they went after the amberjack. Mm-hmm. They've now took care of that, but it's too late, because we don't see near. I'm not saying they're extinct. I'm not trying to say that. Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to say is the numbers aren't there like they were.
Yeah. 10 years ago when I got hooked up with Richie, it was, we go out there and we just annihilate, AJs and
big ones too.
If you were trying to do anything else, it was not fun, because the AJs would.
Right.
Yes. You remember.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go for beeliners or something. You just ain't catch them because of those AJs. But now you're seeing guys that don't really, know how to fish, and they're bringing back limits of
they're
beeliners.
New at it and they're catching them.
Yeah. And that means that amberjack is not there, because prior to that you
The ecosystem's broken down, like you said.
Yeah. You remember they were making a big fuss about cobia there for a minute.
Yeah, they were.
Because they were, are there two populations of cobia, a Gulf Coast population and an East Coast population? And they were regulating from the Georgia-Florida border down to Key West differently than from the Georgia-Florida border up to Virginia's.
Yeah, that's right.
Differently. And whenever something like that comes out of nowhere, I always think, who's got something to gain from this monetarily?
Yeah, exactly. Because it
that's
the
Florida
first
line,
thing
I think about.
Yeah,
the Florida line's where it's at, right? That's the break.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And we know very well that the cobia that are off the coast of Georgia are the same ones that are off the coast of Florida.
Yeah, surely they don't know where that line is.
They don't hit the St. Mary's River and go, well, that's it for us,
That's
folks.
it. We're done. Yeah, no. No.
But, yeah. Well, this doesn't have much to do with Sheepshead, but I think it is interesting to note all of that stuff. But in the interest of wrapping this up for folks that are here for the Sheepshead stuff, do you still have that hook right there with you?
I do.
Yeah.
This is a 3467 Mustad 3467. It's a number 2, not 2 off, number 2. So I'll show you it. And I do not endorse Mustad, and they do not endorse me. But this is just a hook that I found. So I don't normally use Mustad, but this is a longer. If I can get it in my hand, right? That's a long shank hook. Yeah, get his hand there. It looks big, probably in the camera there, but it's thick, but it's not a big hook. That gap, you can't even get your pinky under that gap. I mean, it's a tiny little hook, but it is 4X wire on it, and with that longer shank, it allows you to not only be able to tangle with it with pliers and not bend the shank.
Being that's 4X,
being it's 4X, so you don't tear it up. Handle it with pliers and rip it out of their teeth or wherever it's hung. Also, they don't swallow your little horseshoe-shaped hook, live bait type style hook, and bite the leader off and break you off, because the big fish will do that.
Yeah,
right. Or that longer shank is going to help get it past those teeth.
Yeah, that's right. And like, I mean, every time this thing's sticking out about right there. Every time.
Yep. Yeah, because every we've caught like small sheepshead and stuff. We've caught them in the skin of the lip, outside of the teeth. Any hook will do for that. I mean, but you can't place that hook.
You can't make them do that.
Every single big fish that we've ever caught, it's always been in the roof of the mouth. And if you've ever, you look at the anatomy of their mouths and stuff, there's a bunch of molars right there in that where we have a soft palate up there.
Right.
They have all the molars, and that hook gets in that, right there in that palate, and they're biting on the shank of the hook on those big ones. So if you're wanting to increase your chance of catching the bigger ones or landing those big ones, you're gonna want to go with that longer shank hook. I mean, that's what works for us. I mean, other people are gonna have opinions on what works for them and blah blah blah. But this is what works for us. What we've seen, because that with it sticking out of their mouth. I mean, that's the biggest key loss of big sheepshead is them biting through the leader. Yeah,
the fish chewing on the leader is the detriment of landing.
And speaking of, I learned a little something from y'all that I fish a lot lighter leader than what y'all do, but what y'all said made sense. Not just about what size leader, but what color leader that you're using. If y'all could kind of rehash that for us a little bit.
Yeah, we can. And I don't know. It's red. It's the old Cajun red mono, and I'm not sure. I'm sure somebody made some red line. Penn made it for a little bit until the government made them sell all that out and get out of that particular lineup of red line.
So they were in a monopoly situation, and they were forced out of that.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, when Pure Fishing got the conglomerate of Penn and every other brand that I don't want to name them all here, but all the brands they got. Mm-hmm. But the government they had a monopolization on the fishing line, especially monofilament.
Yeah.
So they made them dump one of the companies. Well, that was one of them. So they just sent us cable-sized spools, like coax cable-sized spools. And some seemed bigger than that. I guess they weren't, but they were just
like literally 10,000 yards of line.
Yeah, something like that. Spool. So I had 20, 30, and 50, and they sent me others, but
we had some 80.
It had some 80. Didn't really want that.
We
fixed it all up.
We use that for tarpon and stuff a lot. Was that 80?
It's gone now, though. Yeah, that's gone. We used all of it. That's been 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But anyhow, that red, what we found out is, I don't care what brand it'll be, it really is the first color to disappear in the water spectrum. Mm-hmm. And so we've had a lot of success using red line, but we've settled on 50 due to that fact. And,
we fish a lot of that hangy structure, and we've talked about it before with clients and stuff on board. You're gonna lose a lot of tackle. So as a guide of over 10 years plus, all of us, you're gonna look for stuff that's gonna be easier for you to manage. And going with that heavier, beefier tackle, leader, swivels, everything. If you can get away with it, you're going to do it because it's going to make it a lot easier on the boat.
Yeah. You're going to push the limit for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, that's something that we talked about in the first go around was that, and what really kind of solidified the whole red thing for me was when you mentioned spearfishing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you shoot a fish. Once you get out of a certain level of light, that blood's gray in the water. It's not red.
They don't bleed red.
No, it looks like
I'd never really, it's weird how many times I've seen that in videos and things like that and never gone, why is that blood gray? Until you said something about it. And it really does kind of corroborate what you're saying about using that red leader, and you can get away with using 50.
Yeah, you can.
And for that reason.
Yep, you do.
One question I have for you is, if you're using a 50-pound leader, what are you doing for mainline?
Usually 50 also, and I'd rather it be a breakaway type situation, but we're at 50-50, unfortunately. Yeah. It just is what it is. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're likely to have the abrasion in the monofilament to hopefully, if you're hung, hopefully you can pop that thing off and save your sinker and swivel and just have to retire the hook and leader.
Yeah, because we did a whole video on bottom fishing 24/7 where we rig for sheepshead specifically, and we'll show you in that video where you go from your braided main line to a top shot, so that your weight slides up and down on that top shot of mono. That way you have the abrasion resistance. With those egg weights, they're all cast, nothing perfect,
nothing smooth.
So they'll fray up that braid. So we like to put it on a piece of leader. That way
that's a good point. A nick and braid can be catastrophic.
Yeah, because
we're no stretch, no shock whatsoever.
Right, and Power Pro back in the day, even still now, is a lot of 4-strand. They've got up to 16, 32 strand now.
They got 16. They don't.
No, but I'm saying there are.
Yeah, because we fish it.
Yeah, we fish 16 strand. At minimum, we're going to fish 8 to 12.
12, yeah, that's the minimum.
And that's because you get a nick in that strand, you're still going to have some stability left in your line. But when you're on 4-strand, you're taking a quarter of your strength away from that line.
That's why a lot of people break 4-strand. They don't even know that there is an 8-strand or a 16. 8's really fine, honestly.
Yeah,
you get 16's that's almost perfectly round.
And it's very common now. 8-strand.
It is. It's pretty common.
Except Power Pro.
You're saying Power Pro does not make that. They're still 4-strand.
I don't think they even do a 16. I don't keep up with them, but last time I looked at, I hadn't seen anything on that. I think they had an 8. Which is really okay.
Is there a brand that y'all have found is good? Because here's what I've found is some of these off brands, the diameter kind of sucks. And it sounds terrible going through the guides. It's just super abrasive. Have y'all found one that's got like the 8 or the 16 strand that, but still has the other desirable characteristics of being fairly smooth through the guides and a decent diameter?
I think it's that Segoiling, however you pronounce it. I think that's the latest we're using. I think that's what it is. He's going to check.
Gotcha.
I think it's that. I don't even know how to pronounce it.
This is a super smooth and super round.
That's only 12, but yeah.
This is a 12-strand braid.
Okay, so it's S and a bunch of letters. Got it.
Yeah.
So it's Sougyilang.
Saguilang. I don't know.
Whatever. They should have just used a random word generator.
Yeah. I mean, really, seriously.
Acme braid.
Acme braid. That's what it is. But I can tell you this stuff right here.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna break. And it's thin, like thread thin, and it's 50.
Yeah. This is This right here is, and it's really round. When you were talking about, it sounds terrible going through the guides. A lot of like the 4-strand and stuff, 8-strand, it's because it's not round.
That's right.
That braid is round. So when it's coming through this guides, it's just hitting all those nicks in the twist of that line.
It's hitting on the braid.
Right.
And when you go up to the 12 and 16,
you don't hear that stuff.
You don't hear it because it's so round.
Yeah, well, it's probably like going from like an anchor rope that's a twist versus a kern mantle where you've got that tight braided outside mantle.
That's right. Yep. It's exactly the same. Exactly right. Same thing. And that's relatively inexpensive line.
Yeah, and you can get that on the great Amazon.
Get that on the Jungle website any day.
Yeah. Hey, if there was nothing else that came out of this, the hook and the line recommendation is to me. And again, this is all stuff you can find on Bottom Fishing 24/7 as well in great detail, which is why I guess we talked about this earlier. Y'all are 3-ounce guys. I'm a 3-ounce guy. That just for that depth of water that we're fishing and the current that we have, that just makes sense. And if it's too much for 3 ounces, it's probably just too much.
Then we're done. We're done. Yeah.
We've put that in every
aspect.
Gauge. Yeah,
that's the gauge. The 3-ounce weight is the gauge.
We've done that even with 4. If you're having to put a 5-ounce on there, it's getting
chinksy.
It's too
good
heavy.
luck keeping your bait on the hook.
That's right. And then you get and when you're bored, you get the seaweed on it,
and the sill.
I'm done.
There's just too much current.
Yeah.
So 3 ounces plus. I mean, when you put 4-5 ounces of lead or whatever on there, I mean, you're just not going to feel that bite. It's because we're already fishing light tackle as it is as far as rod and reels
with a heavier weight.
So with a 3 ounce, it's already, we're fishing.
The rod's been already,
Yeah. So you put an extra ounce, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's huge on the tip of that rod.
Yes, sir. Buddy.
Yeah.
So,
and something else that we talked about, and I think especially when you start going offshore, people don't really take this into account like they should because they don't see that change on the bank like they do inshore. But tide matters.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you're an hour into the outgoing tide,
that's
a rough time.
Yeah,
but you're going to have that window around the tide change.
That's right.
Where it gets right, and that's when you got to be there and you got to get some work done.
Dude, that last 2 hours before low, and even at low, man, if you can't be there then, you're never going to fully experience. If we're talking about sheepshead, you'll never fully experience what sheepshead fishing is about in this offshore. You'll never experience it until you fish that. And some people can only go when they can go. And they'll miss that opportunity time and time again. It's unfortunate because once you hit that, it's just like the mother lode,
Oh, yeah.
So on that full moon, and if all the other stars line up, you might catch 50,
Yeah. Well, that's what, and y'all have seen this happen as charter captains. Somebody will say, hey, I took your advice with, say, tarpon fishing, and I started putting a pogie under a float, and I went out there and I tried it. I didn't get a bite. It's like, what was the tide doing?
Yeah.
Did you see any fish?
Yeah.
What did the water look like?
What about
was the wind blowing? It's like there's so many pieces to this puzzle. So you can have the same sinker, the same hook, the same bait, go fish the right structure. Were you there at the right time?
Yep.
That might be the one thing you were missing.
Yeah,
that's right.
Or the barometric pressure, or the salinity, the chlorophyll.
Yeah.
A billion things.
Yeah. You spoke on it earlier. Was people get on the boat and you've got 6-8 hours, whatever, 4 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is, to train those people to do that. And we've had clients that, hey, we want to ride along. We're going to pay you for this trip. We want to learn. It's a teaching trip. Yeah. We want to learn as much as possible. And I could do that. We can do that. We've done it.
Yep.
And let me tell you, you're gonna learn, but you're not gonna learn enough. You have to go consistently during different weather patterns, conditions.
That's right.
All these different factors that are in your toolbox. You've got to put all those pieces together and know what to do. And there's only one way to do it. And Richie's told me ever since I started, no substitute for experience.
Nope.
There's not.
Well, exactly. And I mean, what we're talking about are those front of mind data points. That's like the big stuff, the tide, the clarity.
Yep.
But you cannot replace that gut feeling when you just look at it and you're like, it's not right. I can't tell you why. It ain't right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I just don't feel it.
That the way that cork's drifting is wrong.
That's right.
It's not standing up the right way. The way I'm not seeing bait in the surf, and you can't even put your finger on what it is. But you're like, we just got to go.
Yeah.
It's the same way in jiu-jitsu. You can think, well, my hand goes here, and then I put it here, and then I'm going to shift my weight this way. But there's 1,000 things that your brain has recorded all of this data from doing it for years and years and years, for hours and hours and hours, that it's doing without your conscious thought.
Right.
It's doing on its own, and you can't. That's time on the water.
Yeah. The bottom line is you literally, due to the experience, you, especially with fishing, you get a feel for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You get a feel for it.
Yeah. We've had
like you can tell when a pelican's about to drop out of the air. You can watch him cruising. You're like, oh, he's about to do it.
About to go.
You just see that little change in his body language, and you're like, oh, yeah, he's about to.
Yeah, one little flitter. He does that flitter.
Yeah.
You know, he saw him. He's about to turn around and go. Yep.
You can tell by the way he hits the water if he's going to come up and shake a bait down.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not to mention just your peripheral vision, the things that you're seeing constantly. You're going to see, especially tarpon fishing, whatever. There's a fish over there. There's bait over here. To get yourself in line with those fish. You just get a feel for everything.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You do.
So
whether it's bottom fishing or inshore, nearshore, whatever it is, you're going to have a feel for what
I guess we've qualified all of that to say this. If you take the advice that you got from Josh and Richie and myself, and you go out there and you get skunked, don't tell me about it until you've gone 10 more times.
Yeah.
At 10 more times, 10 different days, check all the tides. Yep. And taking in some data.
Yeah.
You'll find some things. You'll make your own little adjustments. You'll start to figure it out, but one trip isn't enough.
No, it sure isn't. No.
Keep a logbook on everything you do, and
that's what people want to. If you keep a logbook, you'll find out what the most important things is. Finding out what days to not fish.
Yeah,
that's the most important.
Yeah, if you're wanting to be, as for us as guides and stuff, it's different. We have to go, and that's what makes you a good fisherman. Is you're forced to go in predicaments that you really don't want to go in.
That's right.
And when you retire from being a guide, you get to pick those days, and so it makes it a lot better for you in that aspect. But if you're a recreational fisherman, you're gonna have to go in all those different conditions, just like a guide does, because that's what's going to make you better. As a fisherman in general, in whole, because you're going to start putting patterns to stuff. You're not going to watch just one video or 100 videos and go be a professional. You're just not. You have to get out on that water and put everything that you've learned to a test, and then keep logs of that, so you can look back and be like, oh, well, this day
because you will weed out, if nothing else, you will weed out low percentage ideas.
Where not to go or what not to do.
When you've got 4 hours, you can't waste 1 hour on low percentage stuff.
No, you can't. That's why
as a recreational fisherman, you might be okay with that. Well, I'm just going to go try it, and if I lose an hour, I lose an hour. But that's why you're also not catching fish the way that we catch fish.
That's right. And for $700, we better know.
And let's just go back to being a charter guide again. We're still going to have off days where just you cannot.
Can't make them bite.
You can't do it. It's just physically impossible to do.
Yeah, you're
because
trying to predict what wild animals are going to do in a dynamic environment with thousands of variables that we can't possibly control.
Correct.
Wild animals in Mother Nature's environment is not a situation that can be controlled. I don't care who you are, but we can give you the best chances.
But we're going to win more than we lose.
That's right. Usually so. That's true.
And when we lose, it's going to be we're going to lose still trying to be pretty scientific about what we're doing.
Yeah. And boy, they think it's hard on them.
Yeah.
Man, it's way hard on guys.
Yeah, you got to wear that home. Yeah, you got to wear that skunk the whole way home. You walk in, you don't even look your wife in the eyes.
No kidding. Yeah, it's
your
bad.
kids are like, "Hey, Daddy," you're like, "I can't even look at you right now."
Yeah, it really hurts when you put that head on that pillow. And my eyes don't like to shut.
No, man.
Yeah, and it's the worst is when tomorrow you're going to have damn near the same conditions.
110.
Water's still going to be dirty. Wind's still going to be blowing 20.
Yeah. And you know what? And it might turn out to be an excellent day.
Sometimes
that day.
It usually does, honestly.
We've literally had that happen. And
But you got to shake those people's hand on the dock and go, "Come on in. Let's go get them, guys."
Yeah, that's right.
And act like yesterday never happened.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's precisely what you got to do.
That's why
I could wax poetic about the charter business, but
Yeah, every good guide has gray hair. I promise.
Yeah, it's getting
Yeah.
getting a little out of hand there, brother. Even getting down there in my chin whiskers. So, but man, I think this is a lot for people to chew on, especially if they want to get into the sheepshead thing. I think it's very generous of y'all to share what you've shared. If you want more generosity, check out Bottom Fishing 24/7. And if you want to book a charter with Josh, what's the website?
GeorgiaSportfishing.com.
GeorgiaSportfishing.com. There you have
That's it.
Y'all good to end it right there?
Good to go.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, man.